All
Hello,
right.
everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Conservative Input. I'm Stephen Lee, and I am here with my friends Josie, Timothy, and Devin. We're going to talk about a very serious issue. There's a very serious issue upon us at this time. Let's see. Oh, more COVID stuff. Let's talk about the Delta variant because we hear all this like Delta variant boogeyman that's been swirling around in medias all across the world, not just in the United States, but in medias across the world. People are hyping about this new Delta variant thing. So, guys, what do we think about this whole Delta variant hype?
Well,
Have you
it's
before?
10 times more deadly and infectious, so I think we should all be very worried. Wear two masks, especially when we're in the shower or in the car alone. Make sure we're vaccinated. Get your 24 jabs, okay? Your two doses of each of the Pfizer, Moderna, and whatever the third one is. Make sure you get the Johnson and Johnson. I know it's pooled in the U.S., but make sure you get it, and then
Oh my
get
word,
your 11 boosters. So
dude,
yeah,
that sounds like communist talk.
no, definitely not.
Definitely.
It's definitely not fascist or communist at all to force people to get vaccinations that they don't need. I mean, don't need. Everybody needs the vaccine. 100,
Wow.
Yeah,
100%
definitely do it
effective.
before it's proven if it's like safe or
Yeah.
effective, like how much, do it
Yeah.
before, completely before there's been like, so that way we'll know.
Yeah,
We
all those medications that cause serious problems, after years of study on them, yeah, that doesn't apply to the COVID vaccine at all. Perfectly safe. And the reason why you have to wear more masks is because even if you have the vaccine, you can get sick and give it to other people, even though it's completely safe.
Yeah, yeah. Even though
What
it's
is
doing its
wrong with you
job, we still have to help
people?
it.
What is seriously wrong with you people, man?
Steven, you know I'm joking. Come on now.
Yeah.
I
Now,
have to make sure I have to kick communist behavior out.
I did say before we started, I think the vaccine's good, but I think it's a personal choice still.
Yep.
Ask your doctor. Ask your doctor for sure, because you may not need it. Um,
Not really, because I feel like a lot of the doctors are on with Fauci, and so I don't know if you should even trust that now. So there's
you gotta find a good old conservative doctor. You know,
Yeah,
that.
that's true too. Yeah.
if you live in
Well,
California, don't trust any of the doctors there. Go over to like I don't know, Texas or something. Hey, that's what all the Californians are doing. Just go to Texas.
Wow.
Go to Texas to get your COVID vaccine.
Hopefully
well,
they
the
don't bring
problem
the
is
liberal
like
rhetoric.
they're still saying like they'll tell everybody, "Oh, it's a safe vaccine." How do you
Hmm.
know that? Like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Like, please tell me, because this has like for a normal vaccine, what is it, 12 years
Yeah,
before?
12 years in order to be approved by the FDA, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. So how can you say it's safe whenever it just came out, what, a year ago? So,
Well,
what?
so I'm not going to make claims about its long-term effects because we don't know. But even in countries with the worst um, death rates as of right now, it's still 94% effective. The vaccine is at preventing death. Preventing infection. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for preventing death, and deaths have been decreased. I won't say significantly. I haven't really looked at numbers that much, but deaths weren't really that bad in the first place. So,
Well, so it was
hmm
98.7% like at a recovery rate, but then now
yeah.
that they've bumped that up to actually a 99% recovery rate
hmm
for the COVID virus. So it's like, um, why do we need a vaccine for something that has a 99% recovery rate?
Well, that
What?
number's with the vaccine.
Uh,
Yeah, it's
not.
an because I actually did the math, total deaths versus total cases, and you weren't here in the last one, so you weren't able to see this, but
mm,
um, so the total deaths per cases. Well, so first let's look at the total deaths per the population of the world. So there's 7 billion people in the world, 7.8, almost 8 billion people in the world. 2. Oh, hey.
And everybody, introducing our friend St.
Yeah,
Lawrence.
the, the
Hello.
the usual lead of the podcast. How you doing, bud?
Good.
That's good.
Yeah.
We have already started. We're going over numbers right now.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I have no clue what the numbers are, so I'll just.
Hey,
For
you're
the
all right.
COVID variants, like the Delta variant.
Yeah. So
Uh,
I'll retract my statement about after the vaccine because I'm not too sure. But with the math that I did, with it, which is the numbers anybody can look up on Google. So I don't know. There's been a total of, okay, so the world's population, is 7.8 billion, almost 8 billion, and total number of deaths is 4 million. So 4 million divided by almost 8 billion is 0.005372, or a 0.05372 of the world's population has died due to COVID. That is statistically insignificant. Well, actually, that's statistically significant, but it's still very small. So, and then of the U.S.'s population, 6,208 or 628,000 people have died, in a country with a population of 331 million. So that is a 0.001896. That's 0.1896% of the U.S.'s population has died. And then, I'm not too sure about the case numbers. I looked them up before, but I guess I do not have them. But roughly 98% recovery rate, worldwide and in the U.S. So, and that's with those numbers on Google. So the 99 probably came from somewhere else with more accurate numbers, to be honest, because I'm not sure I trust Google too much, anyways. But I
Go to
digress.
DuckDuckGo or Yandex or any other search engines if you do not trust Google. That's the bonus part.
Yeah, I use Ecosia, so we talked about that before, I think.
Ooh.
But did
Okay.
what else were you saying, Devin?
I just think it's important to be able to post or to have those numbers out, because I think that we need to take that into account as well.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's, if these people are vaccinated, then they should be protected as well. And especially with as many people that are vaccinated, I feel like that should help, lower the numbers or whatever. But I just feel like this is a whole nother way to like see how much they can control us and like, fear mongering pretty much.
And to be honest, when it comes to politicians, I don't trust any politicians, to be honest, unless I agree with decisions that politicians make sometimes. But in the end, a politician is a politician. I don't trust them. If they ever say anything that I think is kind of sketchy, I immediately look it up. I raise questions about it. And during the whole course of COVID, they have been making decision after decision that I have found shady. A 98% recovery rate from the math on Google. That I don't think that warrants any lockdowns at all. The same amount of people die. If the same amount of people died, for any other reason, they wouldn't raise questions about it at all. And as of right, I think I looked over the past week, at least with the numbers that I had when I got this data, there was only 300 people dying a day in the U.S. from COVID, and 300 people dying a day. 1,800 people die a day from heart disease. It's just, I think it's ridiculous how it's been blown out of proportion.
I agree. And then it's like, they talk about the flu was really bad. A lot of people have died from the flu. So it's like, if, if the flu was so bad, why didn't they mandate vaccines of that?
And that's my point exactly. And the thing is, the flu vaccine took a very long time to develop. I'm pretty sure. I'll go ahead and look it up because I'm curious now.
Go Google it.
Of course.
Well, and this is why people need to do their research as well. Is like, you can see, to be able to see all aspects of it, not just from the media or from politicians or from whatever your government is doing, or just or your governor or whatever your state that you're in that they're trying to implement or they are implementing. I think it is important to take in all the information and find out as much as you can to be able to determine that yourself.
So this is actually from the Weather Channel on the flu vaccine. So
What?
yeah. So in 1918, an influenza pandemic infected the estimated 500 million people worldwide. 500 million
Wow.
people. 500
Mind
million
blown.
people. That is nowhere near the number of people affected. I mean that is nowhere in the opposite sense. Nowhere near as in it is far greater than the number of people that have been affected by COVID, you know? And so it was in 1918 the pandemic started. 1945 is when the vaccine came out. It took 3 decades to develop the flu vaccine. It took
And
Whoa.
then
it took
this is
less
where
than
my
a
red flags go
it took
off.
less than a year to develop the COVID vaccine. Now, granted, science has gone very far since 1918 and even
Yeah.
1945, but still, it raises questions as to the validity of this vaccine. And I mean, I got it. Oh well. There's nothing I can do about it now, but still,
Like my red flags like immediately went off. Like just knowing that information, like wouldn't that like make you question it yourself? And like I understand why people are getting the vaccine, especially with the way that it's being pushed, with the
hmm
way that they're trying to say like, hey, you're going to kill somebody if you don't get the vaccine. I understand why some people are doing it, and people are just tired of hearing it, and they're just like, okay. And then if it starts affecting their work, and if they're starting to mandate all this stuff to where you can't go into certain stores or whatever you want to do, then yeah, I mean, obviously people are going to start doing it because they want to be able to do whatever they want. But then at the same time, it's like we're supposed to be living in a free country, and you're taking that option away from us for us to be able to do the things that we would like to do.
Yeah. Like, come on, man. What happened to all the partying? Like, what happened to the normal parties and like, got crowding together at the concerts or like the stadiums? We want that back. Well, I think some states are have guts to step up to the whole tyranny thing. Like, for example, Texas and Florida. Good
Florida.
job, Ron DeSantis.
see, and I hate it because Ron DeSantis has actually been getting quite a bit of heat because there has been a rise in COVID cases, and everybody's blaming Florida, and I'm like, dude, really?
Yeah,
I
but
mean, because
with
it's
DeSantis's like come back to Biden and all that, that was amazing. Like that was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That
oh
is
yeah,
somebody who loves our country and who is going to stand up for their people. And I wish I had him as a governor.
oh yeah, and I
Yes.
mean, okay, so
Yeah.
my governor is Brian Kemp. And he's come out on social media saying there's not going to be any mask mandates, there's not going to be any vaccine mandates, at least by the state of Georgia, and I really do appreciate that because he's saying it on social media, no mandates. I really wish he would do like press conferences and stuff like that, like Ron DeSantis does. But I mean, he is a little bit older than Ron DeSantis. I'll give him credit where it's due. But I feel like the biggest like misconception about what's going on in Florida right now is that he's not outlawing masks. He's not outlawing the vaccine. He's saying like, and he said from the very beginning, he is a supporter of the vaccine, but it is wrong to force the American people to inject something into their body. He says it's completely elective. If you want to get the vaccine, you can get the vaccine. If you want to wear a mask in school, you can wear a mask in school. But I'm not going to tell kids, that have a very low, actually
Mhm.
almost impossible chance of dying from COVID, that they need to wear a mask in school because they
I
don't.
remember
Exactly.
I remember when Ron DeSantis was saying something about the vaccine, like he's saying like he's kind of for it, but he's against it at the same time.
Yeah.
People are like saying, "Oh yeah, let's boycott Ron DeSantis. He's just another pawn in Biden's administration."
I mean, and I mean, you're seeing actually quite a few Republicans, especially in the House and the Senate and in politics, saying that there's nothing wrong with the vaccine. And I mean, hey, I mean that's their personal opinion. They're allowed to have their personal opinion. They're allowed to voice it. And I feel like the great thing about most of them is, regardless of the fact that they agree with the vaccine, they're still not pushing it. And there are a select few that are pushing it, and it's incredibly irritating that they stand with the Republican Party, but stand everything against that the Republican Party has been pushing for since the beginning of COVID, and it sucks. But I don't know. It's something, but difference in political opinions is something that can't be avoided. You know.
Well, and I think it's important to be able, like,
Hmm.
for them, that's at least, saying like how Ron DeSantis has done it. He's like, hey, if you want to get it done, go get it done. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. And that's how it should be. Like, it shouldn't
Hmm.
be like, oh, no, you don't have a choice. You're going to do this, or you're not going to be able to do what you want to do, acting like we are not in the United States. Like, we are in the United States of America. I have had family that has fought in the military who has risked their lives, who has been injured, who has, the Purple Hearts, all that. So it's like that's what they fought for us to be able to have that freedom, for us to be able to make our own decisions. And it should be our decisions. Like, hey, if we want to, risk our lives to get this, virus, then we should be able to choose to do so. It shouldn't be somebody else's decision. It should be our own decision. Like,
Hmm.
hey, I mean, if we end up dying from it, sorry, I mean, that's just how it's going to end up being. Like, did we make the wrong decision? Apparently we did. But say if we don't, we're still healthy, then what does it matter? It's
Yeah.
our body. We should be able to make that decision ourselves.
Yeah, it's
Our
the
body, our
risks we
choice.
take in life, like every day, doing anything of our own will and our own choosing. Like that's just what life is when you get to enjoy the freedom and liberty we have here.
Yeah, man.
And then
Honestly, I wish people from other countries could come, just like actually just experience every. I mean, like, because during this whole COVID thing, unlike most Americans, like actually no, there are a few countries rising up too right now, like France
Mhm.
and Britain and you know
in
Italy.
Germany,
Yep,
and
other countries.
I love what is going on in other countries right now because
Yeah,
it's showing the American left that they're being like countries that don't have these rights by their constitution, you know. They don't have the right to freedom of speech. They don't have the right to
Yeah.
to tell the government that they're not allowed to do anything. That's not things they
Like in
have the right to
Cuba.
do. But
Or
yeah, like in Cuba.
France. And
Um, but
France is a huge
you
example.
see these people in France, in Germany, in Great Britain actively protesting mandates, and it like it makes me wonder, these are countries that the left points to when they're looking at like socialistic ideas that they want to implement here. You know,
yeah,
funny fact about the socialistic tendencies of other countries. The only reason why most countries in Northern Europe can afford single-payer healthcare and afford free college is because they're not paying anything into their military and self-defense, and the U.S. is giving aid to them for the military. That's the
Yeah,
only
so
reason why they can afford the single-payer healthcare.
they're
But
still living off our capitalism.
yeah, and
yep.
exactly. And I think it's a real big jab to get it jab to the
Yeah.
American left that all these countries are actively fighting against what they want to implement in
Yeah.
our country. So
The other countries still like there are other countries still like they accept it as like normal. They still obey
mhm,
everything. Like I just think we need to get the truth out to them. It's like even like people like from different Asian countries are still like compliant, and they often point at us. Like I said before, like people point to South Korea as response to the COVID
mhm.
pandemic. I'm like, come on, man. Like, I mean, haven't they looked at the science already? Like the real science, like, and they call us Americans stupid for like planning these anti-lockdown protests back in like
Mhm.
last year. They call us stupid. Like it's so weird.
Right? They can think what they want, but
Yeah,
in the end, you know, the numbers don't lie.
numbers don't lie.
Numbers
Yes.
don't lie.
I
And
mean, it depends on what resource you're getting it from.
well,
So let me
yeah.
just throw that
I
out there.
mean, a majority of the time, numbers don't lie. Number of cases, number of deaths, with the numbers that the left provides, and I actually do know the number of cases. It's like it's around 20 million. So 20 million cases, 500 million cases in the case of the flu. By the way, let's bring that up again. But 20 million cases of COVID, 4 million have died. That's oh no, 200 million cases of COVID. There we go. There we go.
Yeah,
Sorry.
200.
200 million cases of COVID. 4 million people have died. That is an incredibly small percentage of people. It's roughly 2%. So 98% recovery rate. The numbers that they provide give the answers that we need. You know.
Yeah, so even if they were lying about the numbers, which I do believe some of it could have been lying, definitely, it's still, we're using their own possible lies or truth either way to destroy their agenda and what they
Yeah.
say about it.
And that's what happens with a lot of arguments that I have with people on the left. You know, they bring up something and I'm like, what you just said completely proves my point. You know, I brought it up with y'all when I was talking about my arguments on Twitter. They bring up things the government does and I say, "Hey, I don't really like the people in government." You know? You're not invalidating my argument at all. And then they say something like you know, uh 26,000 deaths due to lack of healthcare. And I'm like, 2,300 waiting in lines, population 10 times greater than that country, same number of people who died. You're not doing anything. You know, they constantly bring up points that do nothing but completely invalidate their own argument. And you know, you see it with everything. You know, hey, what's the biggest what's the greatest way to reduce gun crime? Now take away all our guns. So we're getting rid of the Second Amendment, or something that moderates usually recommend, putting in a gun registry. The point of the Second Amendment is to defend ourselves in case of a tyrannical government. If we put in a gun
Yes.
registry, that tyrannical government would know all the guns were. That completely defeats the purpose of the Second Amendment. And
Yes.
you know, there's things like that all the time. And Steven Crowder had actually had a pretty good debate with someone who gave that exact point, and he was like, "All right, this debate's over." And the guy's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because what you just said would completely defeat the purpose of the Second Amendment." And that's exactly what they do over and over and over again. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Man.
Oh yeah, I was
Really
gonna bring up
cool.
something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they are, and I think, okay, sorry. Ben Shapiro actually called my attention to this. I was listening to him today from like yesterday's episode. Anyway, he was saying how all they're talking about, we mentioned really quickly how Florida is having like a surge in cases
Mhm.
and stuff. But Ben Shapiro was saying all they're talking about, all they're highlighting is the surge in cases, not how many people are dying from
Exactly.
COVID, because that would prove them wrong in itself. But they're still focusing on, like, I don't know, it's annoying. They're using like half of the argument, but not the part that actually matters, you know, because that would just prove them wrong. And another thing is, like, of course, there's going to be a surge in cases typically,
Mhm.
and that's not what we need to focus on. We need to focus on how many people are actually dying because that's what actually matters. And so if Florida is being like better with their not having so many mandates and everything,
Mhm.
viruses, like, just viruses in general are a tiny, like, they're a fraction of the size of bacteria. So of course you can't prevent people from
Oh
getting
yeah.
the virus. So what really matters is
Yeah.
not the amount of cases, but the amount of deaths. And they're just completely skimming over that unless it supports their narrative. So
Yeah. I mean, it's an airborne virus, plus it like travels, and even if you do wear a mask, which
Well,
which
and
they
it
say is
doesn't
supposed to help you protect you from COVID, but like they don't actually do it. It's like it could still travel through your mouth. It's airborne. Now, Devin, what were you gonna say?
Well, it doesn't even matter if you're vaccinated now. There's people that are vaccinated that have caught COVID as well. So it's like, so wearing a mask and being vaccinated is still not stopping that because it is airborne. And then also, I don't even know about that because if you look at the flu percentages, the people who had the flu and stuff like that, like the flu rate have went so much down. So I feel like they're probably just over diagnosing um uh COVID as well, just because the health industry is getting money from how many cases that they have. So
yes,
why would
exactly.
they give like legitimate statistics about it, or diagnose somebody with the flu or even the common cold?
Mhm.
Because I know several people who have gotten COVID and all they had was cold symptoms. So it's like I feel like that they're
I COVID.
probably over diagnosing people with that, and so um I don't know, I just don't trust all of that.
Yeah, and I will raise questions, and that's why I said when I was talking about the numbers that I have, that's why I said the numbers that they give us, because we already know there's There's not any evidence, but there have been firsthand accounts from
Mhm.
people in the medical field who have talked about, these people in the hospital have COVID, but they die of unrelated reasons. Write down COVID. They get money. They get money from the federal government. So I really do doubt that 4 million number.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
even like we can doubt it because yeah, we have the anecdotal, I guess, evidence, and because obviously there's an
yeah,
incentive, a complete incentive to lie about
yeah.
how they're dying, or to lie about the number of cases or how bad it is and the number of deaths as well.
And it sucks that we're using anecdotal evidence because that's
Yeah,
usually one of the things that the right tries to avoid. We
yeah,
avoid it when it comes to sexual harassment. We avoid it when it comes to um, racial bias. We avoid it when it comes to anything because in the end those aren't reliable sources. But when it's something like this that's affecting the public as much
mhm,
as it has, you can't ignore those. You know.
yeah. Because personal accounts and things that
Hmm.
really do happen, like when you have the job of being in a hospital, like you
Yeah.
see it happening, that does matter too. But you're right about like focusing on the big
Hmm.
numbers because personal accounts can get very messy and very hard to know
Yeah.
when they're true. But
and
Oh
that's
my
and that's
goodness.
and that's why I'm bringing up these numbers because even looking at the numbers, it's
hmm
ridiculous that we're focusing this much on masking up because
yeah,
clearly, I mean, okay, so the masks. You go and buy a box of masks from Walmart. What does it say on the box? These do not help or these do not
Stop the
um,
spread.
stop the spread of infectious diseases. They
hmm
on
I thought
every
they're
single
supposed to
box they
stop.
say that, except for like the KN95, which apparently
yeah,
are pretty good. But not everybody's wearing KN95s. Usually they're
and they're
wearing a
not
thin piece.
mandating
Yeah,
those.
usually they're wearing a thin piece of fabric over their face. Or let's break this open right now. I'll tear up a mask for y'all. Okay, this right
What
here.
the?
Oh yes, live demonstration of
Uh oh.
wonderful math.
This right
Oh
here.
yeah. There you go. Yes.
This blue
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
is a wipe. Okay.
Yeah.
This right
Mask
here.
Yeah.
dissection.
Yes.
This is a piece
Yes.
of toilet paper.
There you go. Yeah, that's like get it out.
This
Get
right
it
here
out.
is another wipe. That's all it is. It's wipe, toilet paper, wipe.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
can breathe
Get it
through wipe,
out.
toilet paper,
Get it
wipe.
out.
You can pass diseases through wipe, toilet paper, wipe. It's
Yeah,
absolutely insane that this is supposed to stop something. Period. And the fact that these
Yeah.
numbers don't even like validate those claims
hmm
says all you need to know.
Yep. So they are really not like
Yeah.
one, it's the main question of even if they did validate whatever, should the government have the right to mandate stuff like masks, vaccines, lockdowns?
No.
Should they control your life at that level? No, they should not. But two, even if we said yes, the science does not support in this case that being the case with COVID because of all the discrepancies in the numbers. Like it doesn't support even if they did have that right. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
And here's the thing. You know, if you show me anything less than a 98% recovery rate with case numbers much higher than this, I would consider
mhm.
being a little bit more forceful with the vaccinations, you know. But this isn't a lot of cases. This isn't a lot of deaths. The furthest I would go is um, government employees. That's the furthest I would go, and I
Yeah.
really don't even want to.
Me neither.
But things like smallpox, in order to go to public schools, I'm fairly certain at least that you have to have the smallpox vaccine. You have to have, I think you have to have the polio vaccine. I don't know. Um, and that's what a lot of people are talking about. And I'm like, I'm not too sure about that. But from the looks of it, with what's been going on in the public sector, when it comes to education, I feel like we're going to see a really big rise in private schools and charter schools and homeschooling because, hey, I mean, kids are already doing school at home this year and
Yeah.
most of last year. Well, not even most of last year, last all of last year and then most of the year before. So,
Mhm.
or not most of the semester before.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
get that correct. But I think the biggest issue is that the numbers do not match the claims. and from the looks of it, they never will. And the left being this forceful with something when they don't need to be is a red flag.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly. All right.
And also to everybody here, and also to everybody watching this, I just want to let you know it's like, whatever it is, make good choices in life. Continue to do what you normally do, even with this whole media hype. Continue to live healthy. If you wanna wash your hands, obviously. But if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you want to socially distance. But don't let the fear take control of your life. Do it because
Yeah.
you feel like that's what you need to do to stay healthy. And obviously, eh, take everything that you hear from the media with a grain of salt,
Yeah.
because a lot of times what the media says may not be true,
Yeah.
or
And
it is already not true.
and see, my thing is, I do not have any problem at all with people wearing masks. I don't. I mean, if I see you in your car alone wearing a mask, I'm gonna think you're kind of silly. If I see you
Yep.
walking in the middle of a park, nowhere near people wearing a mask, I'm gonna think you're silly. But if you're walking into a building, you pull a mask out of your pocket and put it on. Hey, I, you're looking out for your safety, and I'm looking out for my safety. That's all I can say.
See,
If
I
you
still have an issue with the mask though, because I feel like it dehumanizes people. You're less likely to talk to people. You're less likely to have like small exchanges
Yeah.
or, even things like that. So it's like it makes you not care about people as much. And I think that that's another thing that they're trying to push
Yeah.
too, is so that they can push and do all this. But how much hatred they have stemmed up. How much like division they have caused with everything that they have done. I think that this is just another way to do it, because if you don't care about like the people that you don't know, or like, your people, like people in your community and things like that, you're less likely to do certain things or stand up or whatever. You're going to be divided. You're going to not, just have more issues. And so I think that having these masks on makes
Mhm.
it even more worse than that. And then also, like, I have an issue with hearing, and so like I have to lip read a lot, and so
Yeah.
I honestly have to ask somebody to repeat themselves like
Same.
5 times before I can before I understand it. And so it's like by the time like I'm done with the conversation, I'm kind of frustrated, or they're
Yeah.
frustrated. And so it just caused a lot more issues. And then on top of that, with kids being in school, and especially younger kids, they're having to learn about languages and things like that.
Mhm.
And they can't, they don't know certain words, especially younger kids, like three,
Yeah.
4 or 5 years old. They're still learning how to speak and enunciate and things like, um, and the teachers are trying to teach them this, but how are they able to with their mask on? They won't be
Yeah.
able to see how they're supposed to hold their mouths. They're not able to see that as much. So I think that's going to hinder the children, because
Yeah.
they're not going to be able to like enunciate as well, or whatever else. And I think that it all stems from that, from just wearing the mask. Yeah, it
Yeah.
seems like a little thing, and I can understand why someone who is like immunocompromised or things like that wearing it, but I think that there's a lot more behind it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I 100% agree with you there.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I bring up though is, we do have that personal choice. So
Yes.
I like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
mandating. Completely off the table. I do
Yeah.
not think it should be mandated at all. Nobody should be forced to wear or not to wear anything. Nowhere in the Constitution does it
Yes.
say the government has the right to tell us what to put on, in, or around our bodies. You know,
Yes.
they can't tell us to wear
Absolutely.
masks. They can't tell us to get vaccines. They can't tell us to do anything. But if
Yeah.
somebody wants to come into Subway, okay, I'll use Subway as an example, and put on a
Yeah.
mask. Yes, I have hearing problems. It's going to be difficult for me to hear them. I'm going to get frustrated, but I can't tell them to not wear a mask.
Yeah.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I'm a firm believer. Like,
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want. Do
Yeah.
whatever you want. You want to wear a mask? Wear a mask. If you don't wear a mask.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But just don't, like, the mandating and stuff. That's what I have the
Yeah.
issue with.
Yeah, no, the really annoying thing is that like blanket mandates and like any type of too far government regulation, it just discourages like individual responsibility
Mhm.
and your own critical thinking, your own decision making at your own individual level and for the people closest to you that you care about. So it's really annoying because again, like we talk about government dependence a lot, I feel,
Yeah.
but it's because it's such a big thing, a big issue right now. So many people, especially our age, I think, feel like the government is the like is God and is supposed to protect us, is
Yeah.
supposed to tell us what to do, is supposed to be in control of every day of our lives. But that is not the case. And so mandates like this, they actually, to me, I think they encourage the dumb way of decision making. Like
Yeah.
they just discourage that. You feel like you don't need to think critically on your own, and you feel like you don't need to decide what's best for you. But
See, in my opinion, the masks and the vaccine, at least the mandates, are the same line of thinking as throwing more money at
yes.
lower income communities. Just throw more money at it. Just throw more money at it. Just slap a mask on. Just take a vaccine. It's the
Yeah.
same line of thinking. They're trying, what they're trying to do is they're trying to take preventative measures in the middle of the issue, which
Yes.
is never the solution. And I 100% agree with you that um, it limits the critical thinking point, you know, and that's with all government regulation, at least government regulation that's not designed to regulate the government itself, you know.
Yes.
um, any regulation on the free market, I mean, we all like a little bit of
We've grown
regulation.
used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, we like a little bit of regulation, but
Yes.
we don't want our anarchy. That's a fact. I mean, some people might. I don't know. I consider
Probably.
myself somewhat of an anarchist, I guess.
Same.
But we all like a little bit of regulation when it comes to the market. But when it comes to society, when it comes to education, when it comes to like medicine, anywhere where competition is necessary, you know, and is a big portion. You know, the main reason why like medication and hospitals bills went up so much is because the government got involved, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with school. School didn't get super expensive until they started giving out scholarships and grants for little to no reason at all, you know. Things being
Bro.
things being in the private sector, and it's the same thing with government housing. The reason why housing is so expensive, not in California. California is a different reason. It's because they limit the amount of buildings they can build there, due to environmental reasons. But government housing, that has driven up the price of owning a home everywhere. And
Yeah.
Come
It's
on.
artificial. It's,
yeah,
yeah.
Really?
Well,
yeah,
I just
and
can't believe it, man.
yeah,
I think I want to go back to like how we were talking about how with the government mandating everything and
yeah,
doing things like that and like having like a tyrannical government. Um, I think we need to remember like how America ended up even getting started in the first place. You have people leaving where they were because of how they were controlling their each and every move, all of that stuff. And so that's the reason why they left there and came here and then started their own, started in America. So I think we have to remember that and remember our history so we aren't doomed to repeat that as well.
And see, the issue is, so the left will complain about things not being taught in schools, but you know, wonderful YouTube channel. I love watching it. Then Will Witt also does it on the PragerU YouTube channel. Like man on the street videos, as they go and ask people
Yeah.
questions. You know, like in one episode on the 4th of July, they said, do you know who the U.S. gained their independence from? Somebody answered George Washington. You know,
Oh my.
nobody could, like a majority of the people couldn't give a real reason. They don't know why America started. They don't know when it was started. He said, I will give you $17.76 if you can tell me when the U.S. was started.
Oh my god.
Somebody literally said 1982.
Oh my goodness.
He
I
gave them
watched
the
that
answer.
video.
Yes.
I was flabbergasted.
What?
It's
I will
absolutely
be honest,
We're so
insane.
ignorant.
It
I
is.
will
We're
be
ignorant.
honest. Like, it is ignorance, and that's why we're in such a like issue that we are in right now is because of ignorance. But
Yes.
I think too, like whenever it comes to history, like I really had to go do my own research and learn stuff on my own because I didn't know a lot. Like, yeah, I took
Yeah.
history in high school and college and stuff, but they didn't teach the things that you really need to know, like to know as far as like the government, everything
Yeah.
with America, things like that. And so I had to teach myself that, but a lot of people will not do that.
Yeah, and that's the case with a lot of education, and that's one of the biggest problems I find with the Common Core education plan. Do you guys know what Common Core is?
Yes.
Yes. So it's basically, I don't know if it's national or if just some states adopted it, but it's basically like an entire education plan. This it says this is what you need to teach,
Yeah.
and some counties, some states have decided to add things on top of it, um, but a lot of them haven't, and a lot of things aren't brought up in Common Core, and that's like a majority of Americans in high school don't learn about American law, and if they do learn about American law, not in a way where they really remember it. They aren't really taught about the founding of America. The reason why I know as much stuff as I do is because I decided that I was a glutton for punishment in high school, and I wanted to take all AP classes, and I read those AP books back and forth for no reason at all, you know. And
Yeah, but that's good. And look how educated you are in how
hey,
much
I,
you
I
know
actually
now.
know I
Yeah.
actually know the year America started. So
Yay. No, the reason
Exactly.
I know I was
19
homeschooled, so
which
I was
is
lucky, I guess.
1978.
Yeah,
No,
wasn't it like
it was
1778.
wasn't it
19.
like 1936? Correct.
I think
Wait, no,
I think it's about right.
it was closer
Yeah,
to when I
because-
was born. It was like
Oh, okay.
2001, 2002.
Oh, definitely.
Oh no. September 11th, 2001. That's when it
That's
was.
that date. Yeah,
September 11th,
9/11. They call it
2001.
9/11.
Yes, that's the that's why
It's
we
like
call 911 when we were there we
the
go.
Stop it.
emergency. Yeah, and that's also why we have American
Fun
flags
fact.
for 9/11.
Yeah.
because
Yeah, fun
it's
fact:
founding.
January 6th is actually worse than 9/11.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Yeah, dude. I can't
That's
believe
worse.
I can't believe we forgot about January 6th, man.
Yeah.
Did you guys
Well,
see
and
did you guys see
also,
the
like,
Did
the
you guys
officers, the 4 of them committed suicide.
What?
I am calling BS.
Oh yeah,
I am
Oh, yo,
seriously
the
calling
Clintons
BS.
are back at it again.
There is no
That's
way
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
that is
Suicide.
The Clintons are back at it.
okay. One person died, okay, and it was a Republican, and their family is suing the police in Washington D.C. for $10 million.
Wait, was it Ashley Babbitt?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
because what happened was he walked up to the door and like shot through it and killed her. No warning, no notification of like actually being there at all. Just shot through it, killed her. So
And
I
if she
really
wasn't
hope.
Republican, this would be another like almost
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter case.
Yeah.
Like they would be
And
like, oh yeah, the police were making the issue worse and we're the wrong ones.
I really hope her family wins that case
Hmm.
because it'll be a big fu to everybody who criticizes that because hey, police brutality,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like what you're saying about like the suicide thing is like, I doubt they would do that because like, do you know how much money they probably made off of just being?
Oh yeah, they could get interviews
part of
from
the committee?
CNN. They can get interviews from WNBC.
Yeah.
From hey, Vox will pay them. Why not? But it's
Wow.
I really okay. So I'm not gonna say it didn't happen. I really do not think it did, and if it did, it's tragic, and I don't think it's for the reasons the left say it's for.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
shame, and if that's the case, shame on the left. Okay, they are scum.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
I've said that plenty of times about many of the things the left has done. I don't know if you guys know what's going on with Steven Crowder, but he's getting actual like people are telling him they hope he dies,
Yeah.
and he's going through heart surgery. And that is absolutely terrible.
That's awful.
Okay,
Like we don't
'cause-
want to do that to like I don't know, like if Joe Biden
Mhm.
or like anyone on the left, if that happened, I hope none of us would say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Well,
hey,
if we stoop down to that level, that's the thing. We always have to
Yeah.
need to make sure to check ourselves that we aren't on that level to where
Yeah.
we hate someone so much that we'd want them to die and
I
get
mean,
onto the
Yeah.
left side level. Really,
Yeah.
Like
honestly.
we would want them to like do something stupid and hilarious, but we don't want them to like
Yeah.
die.
Mhm.
and I mean that's the thing. I'll insult people on the left all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
It's funny.
Yeah, and I'll argue with them constantly. But they'll bring up this thing, or I'll bring up this thing, or they'll bring up this thing about fascism, and I'm like, you want people to be silenced for their opinions. I think everybody should have their opinion. I don't
Yeah.
agree with your opinion. I'll tell this to them. I'll message them. I'll say, I 100% do not agree with what you're saying, but I will fight for your right to say it. You know,
Yeah.
because they have the right to say it. That is
And
their
that's like
opinion. They are allowed to vocalize it, and they can't say anything afterwards. What are you How are you supposed to respond to that? Someone who says that they believe you have the right to say what you're saying, even though they do not agree with it.
yeah,
You know,
that's how you win. Yeah.
and that's how you win an argument. It's either
Yep.
that or when they block you.
Yeah.
That means you win.
Mostly, they mostly end up blocking you.
Yeah. I've only been blocked by one person I've had an argument with. And it wasn't even one of my big arguments. It was only like 20 minutes. Most of my arguments last days at a time. So the fact that someone blocked me from a 20-minute conversation is pretty funny. But
That's silly and it's just dumb.
I mean, hey, I got PETA to block me in the span of hours. So that was pretty great.
Oh man, there's snowflakes though. That's still those.
I'm still working. I'm still working on Planned Parenthood. They're gonna take a little bit, I think. Oh yeah, they haven't
Oh,
blocked
yeah.
me yet.
Really?
But the issue with
Not yet.
Oh.
Not yet. They will though.
He's so good.
What'd you say, Devin?
the issue with that is like they don't want to listen to any side
yeah.
of reasoning or anything like that. So I think that we always need to remember,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to not get so emotional. Like, yeah, we might be like passionate about some of the topics that we talk about
Yeah.
and all of that, but we need to make sure that we're coming from like the facts. We need to make sure that we do our own research, you know, because I feel like nobody like on the left side, they do not do that, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so I'm gonna be honest. There's a couple times I've become vulgar with someone over the internet, but it's usually once they say something that crosses a line. You know, I've had people that I know online, or not I know online, but I've seen conversations online of like, say it's a black guy. You know, it's a black guy, and then some guy whose profile picture is like an anime person wearing a comrade cap or whatever, and their username is like Kami for Life or 64. And you know they're just berating this black guy over his opinions, and then they say like something like completely racist, even though that's not something that the left fights for. They're against
Wow.
racism. They're the party of, or the tolerant left. And that's why I'd be like, that's where I'll draw the line. I'll be like, hey dude, that was messed up, interjecting some vulgarity in that. That's
But
not
that's
cool.
called for. Like, if they're going to be saying stuff like that, you know,
Yeah.
to somebody based off of their skin color and stuff like, then I absolutely would say whatever to them too.
Oh yeah, and that's my thing. I feel like it's completely called for, but that's something that me as a person on the right, I feel like that's a level they stoop to,
Mhm.
regardless of the situation. I
Yeah.
feel like I should be the better person in every situation and never
Yeah.
stoop to that level. But I
Yeah.
have, because it's incredibly hypocritical
Mhm.
and it's terrible that they will go to such lengths to make someone feel bad about their opinion,
Yeah.
that they'll bring up race when that's something that they scream in the streets over,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah,
Um,
and there's definitely a difference, I think, between just stooping to their level all the time
Yeah.
versus just giving them a taste of their own medicine, you
Oh
know?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Because the left needs to be checked too. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
they need to be like, I feel like honestly, like conservatives have been easy on the left because of
Oh,
how
yeah.
ridiculous they get, you know?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, if they were honestly put and like if we were allowed to say what we wanted to say and if we were allowed to do what we wanted to do, then it would be a whole different story. They
Mhm.
wouldn't be able to keep up with us. They wouldn't be able to handle us, because I feel like we have done so much more research. We've done so much, and I'm not talking about everybody, but the majority at least of us have done that.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't always have all the facts. Like sometimes I'll have to look up something real quick, and then I'll send them like a link to a article or something, and then they'll
But
like
you look it up.
yeah, and then they'll shoot like 10 articles back at me, and I'm like, those are all from CNN, and they're
Yeah.
4 years old. But it's just, and you talked about conservatives not being hard enough, or something along those lines. And one thing that reminds me is the left is always talking about shifting goalposts. You know, you're shifting goalposts. Whenever I get into an argument with them, I'm like, they're like, you keep bringing up different things. I'm like, these different things are all related to one another, in one way or another. Not like they use intersectionality, by the way. That is completely different. But like they'll talk about shifting goalposts, and I'll be honest, the right is very bad about shifting their goalposts, but not for the point of winning the argument, but for completely stopping the confrontation. You know, we have gotten to the point where men are allowed to go in women's restrooms. You know, that's something Republicans have completely neglected arguing about. It has gotten to that point. And
Which is
now
ridiculous.
and now we've gotten to the point where men are allowed to compete with biological women in sports. You
Which
know,
is absolutely ridiculous.
which is absolutely ridiculous. You know, we saw recently, you know, a mom complaining to the clerk at a spa about how a man went into the women's dressing room and flashed her daughter. You know, that is absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that it's allowed to happen, you know, proves that conservatives need to get more confrontational.
Well, and we
Yeah.
haven't done what we're supposed to do, you
Yeah.
know?
We haven't been arguing like we should.
Yeah, and also we can't like
Yeah,
we can't prioritize, well, we can prioritize like certain really
Mhm.
big issues, but we can't also leave the smaller seeming issues
Yeah.
behind because
Because then
often
those smaller
they're not
issues will
actually
catch up. They'll
smaller.
get bigger
They
and
lead to
bigger and
bigger.
bigger.
Yeah.
And that's
can't
what's
afford
happened
that.
with the public school system, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and it's gotten to the like public school, you know, hey, first it was Common Core, you know. Oh, no, not everybody needs to learn the same thing. Different areas learn different things for a reason. And then they're like, no, we need to implement it. We need to make sure everybody knows the stuff they need to know. Republicans, okay, cool. And now it's long down the chain of events. Now we're talking about teaching white kids they're racist because of the color of their skin, and teaching black kids that they won't ever make it as far as somebody who's white because of the color of their skin, and they're being held back, which is not true, you know?
And that immediately holds them back.
Yeah.
Just teaching them that when it's not true, it makes it true in a way.
Yeah. And
honestly, yeah. Honestly, yeah. This whole thing of like, you know, I think the reason why is we have to stop playing center right politics. And you're right, we got to start with the education system. Like Republicans, please stop playing center right politics and really fight for our values.
and we are, in a sense, you know, we're seeing a shift to school choice mentality, and the entire right and even part of the left is going for school choice. You know, we see a lot of the issue with that is they're still indoctrinating their kids, but on the right we're still making that shift to charter schools, private schools, and homeschooling that's going to take that money from the public sector and really make sure we know what our kids are learning. So
Exactly. You can't just we can't afford like I said. My main problem with like, you know, just Republicans playing center right in politics is just like we're not finding this media like why aren't Republican people like Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney even doing anything about this media hype, but they're allowing this to continue. And I bet even Republicans are not satisfied with, you know, maybe say people like Brian Kemp, for instance, because he's just deflecting everything. It's like this whole COVID media hype it's just gotten so out of control. They like not a lot of Republicans are speaking up. Why aren't we fighting this, you know, this culture war in even like war for the control of the media? That's what I would say is one of the biggest mistakes from conservatives is giving up the control of media, giving up the control of education to the left.
yeah, and that's one of the things you were talking about, the Brian Kemp thing. He is very, you know, he's not very like outspoken. He's not like Trump. He's not like DeSantis. He's not like Ted Cruz. He's not like McKinley. I remember we watched a video a couple weeks ago about it, or last week. But we have a lot of Republican politicians that aren't going to the links. They're not going to the end. They're not actively trying to push their opinions. They're staying in the background. They're avoiding confrontation. They're voting no on bills you know, until it gets to the point where that bill has some things that they really need in it, and then they'll be like, can we just like kind of dial it back a bit? And the left will gladly do it because they know in the next bill they can just increase it a tiny bit more, and then a tiny
Yep.
bit more, and then a tiny bit more, over and over and over again, until we have things like mask mandates, vaccination mandates,
Yeah.
CRT in public schools. But I digress.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Man. So anyway, so before I can say all this is is that whatever the CDC tells you, just take it with a grain of salt. And no matter what Dr. Fauci says, as we all know from his email leaks back several, just rewind it back several months. Actually, no, it actually rewind it back a couple months even. Those email leaks, they've confirmed what we know about Dr. Fauci, that he is a liar. He is a flip flopper. And for those people that want to make excuses like, oh, because the science is changing. Okay, which science are you talking about?
Yeah,
That the
science
COVID
doesn't change that much.
and
Yeah,
plus
and
like
either way, or sorry, Stephen, you can go.
the mask, the mask itself, like I said, at this point it's become political control. Even why didn't we wear the mask in the beginning if it was actually useful?
Yeah.
Why did we wait till later?
Yeah,
Not
Yeah.
why did it go this back and forth between, and there have been several Republicans who have actually brought this up, which I commend them for. You know, Ted Cruz being one of them.
Hmm.
They've brought up this political jargon, you know, this back and forth, you know, and the hypocrisy of the left. You know, we see Obama throwing a birthday party with 700 people. He has put decreased the amount of or he did decrease the amount of participants in that party, but still, you know, I doubt they were mandated to wear masks. And then we see Speaker Pelosi, you know, put a bill in place where, you know, it was required to wear masks in the House. Wait, is she in the Senate or the House? Pelosi,
the house.
the House. Yeah, Speaker of the House. There we go. Um, and then not even an hour later, she was seen without a mask on the White House or on the Capitol campus. So
Yeah. It's like in everything they say and everything they do, they're just contradicting themselves
yeah.
over and over. And it all really comes down to favoring control over
Hmm.
the well being and freedom of us as the people. Instead, it's power for themselves and control. And then also, every time the science changes,
Hmm.
like when they say get vaccinated, but then they say actually still wear masks because vaccines might not be good enough against the Delta variant, whatever. Either way, we never get any apologies or
Yeah.
they don't show any
Uh,
humility and no accountability from the CDC or any of them in the government either. And it is just not good.
Yeah, so like the thing is, like why did I get the vaccine if I have to wear a mask anyways? You
Yeah.
know? Why didn't they know in the beginning that the vaccines weren't going to work? And if the
well,
vaccines do
yeah.
work like they say they work because they keep saying they work, why do we need to
Hmm.
wear a mask? You know,
Yep.
you can't have both. You can't say
Mm-mm.
one works and that we don't need the other and say that we need the other cuz one doesn't work.
Yeah. And
That's
that's
not how
where,
it goes, and that's what they're doing, you
yep. So
know?
Well,
that
yeah.
makes it so obvious that they're not in it for the right reasons. They're
Mhm.
just in it for whatever brings the most control and power over individual lives.
And that's exactly what's going on even on the uh, you know, the campus. You know, in the House of Representatives, they're required to wear a mask, or
Hmm.
they have to pay a $500 fine. You know, in the Senate, literally right down the hall, well, right down the hall, but somewhere around the Parumba,
Somewhere.
I think someone said,
Vicinity.
um, like halfway between them, the science changes. You know,
Hmm.
you don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to pay a fine. You know, $500 fines for people who are part of the House. Literal arresting people who work in the building if they're not members of the House. Staffers get arrested if they don't wear a mask, which is absolutely insane. Because where do we draw the line? People are being arrested for not wearing a mask, which is illegal. Where do we draw the line?
Yeah.
You know, and
Where is
I think one of the biggest thing about the mask mandates. I meant to say this a while ago when we were still talking when we were in depth about what was going on in Florida, but we see the video of the 12-year-old girl. I don't have you guys seen that yet?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, so it was a video of a 12-year-old girl reading out a letter to I don't know if it was someone on the board of education in Florida or in a county, but they were saying she was saying please mandate masks in schools. I don't my 10-year-old yeah, a 12-year-old girl writing a letter. She says, "My 10-year-old brother is in public school. He's not able to get the vaccine. I don't want him to die." Who is telling their 12-year-old girl that her little brother is going to die from the COVID vaccine? Because I can guarantee you, unless he has like a severe case of asthma, or just asthma, I guess, or a pre-existing medical condition, he is not going to die. You have nothing to worry about. Whoever told you that, aka probably your parents, are abusing you mentally.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
they're
emotionally, yeah.
they're and that literally is emotional abuse. They're telling their daughter someone is going to die if people don't wear a mask, which is not the case. And we brought this up in the first episode of this podcast. When it starts affecting the children in our country, it's an issue.
Yeah.
It's an issue. It's become serious enough for me to have a serious problem with it. So,
Yeah, and
like
again, that. Sorry.
yeah, like I said earlier, I'm fine with people wearing the mask, but if they're going to get it, I'm fine with people wearing the mask. I'm fine with people getting the vaccine. I got the vaccine, but the links they've taken it to make me seriously question what was actually in that vaccine.
Yeah, and then
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the liberals, they'll still say that unvaccinated people, they'll say like because we unvaccinated are selfish. Like I remember I was talking with a liberal friend earlier before this, and he was like, dude, COVID isn't as bad as the media hype says it is. And plus there's like a 99.8% survival rate. And he's like,
Mhm.
no, because the Delta variant is mutating because people like you that are not vaccinated are being selfish. I was like, wow.
yeah.
This is just language. This is
Yeah.
literally the Democrats, the liberals, the left, they can guilt trip you. Like they'll whatever ideas of freedom you may have, it's like they'll just think you're crazy
Mhm.
far right extremist.
Yeah,
So-
and then also like refusing to get a needle with a questionable at least vaccine injected into you. Like refusing to get that, I find that a lot less selfish than forcing other people to
Mhm.
get
Yeah.
for either way it's for your own self safety supposedly, but like one is just refusing to have something put into your body, the other is forcing others to get it put into their body for yourself.
I feel like the biggest question the government needs to answer, and I mean I'm being serious about this. Like if anybody in government sees this, the biggest question you need to answer is where do my rights end and where do yours begin?
Yes.
Where are your rights? Where do they start?
Hmm.
And where is it to the point where it's starting to impede on mine? Because that is an issue.
Yeah.
That and you talked about the unvaxxed. Was it you, Stephen?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
You talked about the unvaxxed. So an amazing post by Unwoken Narrative. I suggest you guys follow them if you're not. I love them
do.
so much.
I love
they're
Unwoken
the
Narrative.
ones who came out and fact checked the whole like Texas banning, talking about the
Yes.
KKK. That's
Mhm.
a complete lie. So, who are the unvaccinated? So 41% of Hispanics have been vaccinated. So 59% of Hispanics have not been vaccinated. Keeping people from going inside of a store, you are disenfranchising 59% of Hispanics in our country. 38% of African Americans have been vaccinated. You are disenfranchising 62% of African Americans,
Mhm.
putting in vaccine mandates. That is objectively racist. Okay? 90% of Americans age 65 and older have been vaccinated. Only 50% of those between the ages of 18 and 24 have been vaccinated. 86% of Democrats are vaccinated. 52% of Republicans have been vaccinated. It's very clear who's being vaccinated and who's not.
Hmm.
Come on. Yeah.
Who's not being vaccinated? Okay, people with lower incomes make up a larger share of the unvaccinated. Less than 25,000 a year. Almost 7 million. 25 to 35. almost 4.5 million. 35 to 49, almost 4.5 million. 50 to 75, 5 million. 75 to 99, 3 million. And the numbers keep going down and down and down and down and down. So they talk about this class struggle, this struggle between races. They talk about how voter IDs are racist. Incorrect. I think on average, a higher percentage of not a higher percentage, a majority of African Americans have voter IDs. They have some form of identification, whether that be a driver's license, a state issued ID, a mail from the government that shows up to their house. You can use mail at your voting office to go vote. It's absolutely insane. And the whole like, oh, they don't have enough money or they don't have the resources. What are you saying about African Americans? You know, are you claiming that they don't know where to go to the DMV? Because in most places, voter IDs, regular IDs, $10 at most, free in many.
Wow.
So that's where you start. And this is the thing. I was thinking about this on my way home from work today. They're so quick to draw the race card in every scenario, except when it comes to the facts.
Yeah.
62% of African Americans are not vaccinated. Vaccine mandates would disenfranchise 62% of African Americans in our country. You know, they claim these the war on drugs was specifically targeted at African Americans because African Americans use heroin at a higher rate than whites. I'm like, I can make the same claim about the vaccine mandates that you guys are so pushy about, and it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It is insane. Plus, like, you know, I haven't even thought of this until you brought it. Actually, dang, that was a good red pill session. Actually,
Yes.
I'd have to say, like, man, like the fact that so then the liberal, by your logic, by the logic that's being put out there,
Yeah.
bunch of African Americans and Hispanics are selfish because they didn't get the vaccine.
Oh, and yeah, and another thing I think is absolutely hilarious. You know, when the left talks about the unvaccinated, they're talking about white Republicans. 52% of Republicans are vaccinated. 38
So less than half.
30 yeah, well, not less than half.
No,
more,
less than half
roughly more than half. Yeah,
no,
so
I meant
50
less than half are not vaccinated.
Yeah, so less than half are not vaccinated. Good point there. 52% of Republicans are vaccinated. 38% of African Americans are vaccinated. So who are the unvaccinated? You know, and I talked to somebody about this on Twitter too. They were like, "Where are you getting your numbers from?" And I showed them that exact post, and I showed them several articles that corroborated.
Corroborate. Wait.
Corroborated. I think I don't know. Hey, I don't know words. That corroborated that
Words
information.
have no meaning.
And they're like, where are you getting those numbers from? And I'm like, from all of these websites. And they're like, those are all polls. I'm like, they don't ask political affiliation when you get your vaccine. All of them are going to be polls. Every single one
Yeah.
of them. You know,
Wow.
when I went to go get vaccinated, I very well could have put African American on my sheet. You know.
What?
Yeah, I could have when I signed up to get the vaccine. You know, they ask. I actually don't even know if they ask for race. I can't remember. But if they did, I could have selected African American.
Yeah.
And what would they have said about it? Nothing at all. They probably would have said nothing at all.
Yeah.
So it's just, or I could have just refused to answer.
Yeah.
So
I just think depends on what your situation is, like with
yeah.
arguing left. It's like if you're still giving them facts and like their only response is like unreliable sources or sources that are very lean towards the right, which by the way, to everybody watching, just because a source has some bias to whatever, it doesn't mean it's always wrong.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They're like they'll always point out, they're like, that source is from Fox News, and I'm like, look at what the source says. Look at what the source says. Okay, now look up that story. Okay,
Think for yourself.
find that same story in other I don't know opinions, I guess, and see what the difference is. In reality, there's not much that's going to be changed about the story. You know, there was stories. I even read stories on Fox News about the people who were killed during the riots. You know, Fox News, very very eager to talk about them. You know,
Mhm.
they're also very comfortable with saying that a lot of the deaths were because of police officers.
Mhm.
You know, whether that be on purpose trying to limit it or on accident trying
Mhm.
to limit it. And it's just you don't see any of those though. All you see is police shoots peaceful protester, and then you see the
Yeah.
video and like it's a very cropped image of probably the corner of the protest where somebody's holding up a sign, and then you see Fox News showing the whole image, and it's like people burning cars, throwing Molotov cocktails
Yeah.
into windows, and it's all about framing
Yeah.
because in both stories the same thing happened. A police officer shot a protester, and sometimes they are peaceful.
Mhm.
Mistake on the police officer, that should be just accordingly, or that should be dealt with accordingly. If you kill someone in an unjust way, you deserve to be punished. Okay. um but framing the story differently to affect the way people think about it is wrong. It's incorrect.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, man. Come on, bro. Like, why is it that when oh, why is it that you the left? It's like, and I gotta say something to the liberals. To any liberals that are gonna watch this show.
Okay, wait, let's clarify here. Liberals are leftist,
Mm,
because Tim Pool is a liberal, but a lot of us agree with Tim Pool.
I'll
Do you,
say leftist. Let's change the wording there. Leftist.
leftist. Okay, there we go.
To the leftists who are watching this
Hmm.
or that are gonna watch this episode, I have one question to ask you guys. What kind of moral standards do you have? Like, do you just call anyone who disagrees with your methods as selfish, unforgiving, unkind, unloving? Like, what is it with you and this, like, oh, you gotta get the vaccine? You know what? If people are living just fine, they're just eating well, they're working out in the gym well, or they're just working, just trying to make a living, trying to get, you know, get a good paycheck for themselves. It's like if they're just living healthy lives, like what standards are you just really just imposing? Why do you always make it seem like there's always something wrong with them that has to be fixed?
Mhm.
Please
And
answer
so
the question.
the biggest, I mean, I 100% agree with you, Stephen. But the thing you have to understand is a lot of these people on the left, they're getting their information from the same places. They're watching CNN. They're watching these left-wing news medias, and they're seeing, the rise in cases, a 200% rise in cases or a 100% rise in cases, and regardless
Oh,
of how much that is, they're not getting the actual numbers. They're seeing percentages. They're seeing these people flip out about the COVID, and they
oh.
are reacting to an emotional representation of what's going on. They're not getting the full story, and you can't blame them. You
Yeah.
know, and like I said before we started this, there's a lot of people on the left who agree 100% with like story of Will Witt's mother. He talked about this on a stream the other day. He was talking about how he asked his mom, or was it his mother? I really hope it was. I hope I'm not mixing up the story. He asked someone. Let's go with that. He asked someone their opinion on some key beliefs of Donald Trump. Okay,
Mhm.
they agreed with Donald Trump. He didn't tell them that was Donald Trump's opinion, but they agreed with him. And then he asked him about Donald Trump, and they were like, "Oh, he's evil. I hate him." You just agreed with everything he stands for, you know,
Yeah.
and that's the problem. That's the problem with the left. They don't know when they're being indoctrinated, and they don't know when they're actually getting information.
Yeah.
Because they view any information from the right as indoctrination, and any information or misinformation, and they deem any information from the left as word of God, basically. and
Mhm.
and that's the issue. They're not
Oh my
getting the
God.
numbers, they're not getting the facts, they're getting these emotional responses to what's happening. And hey, I mean, if most of them are coming from a good place, and I can respect that,
Yeah.
but you
Same.
really need to look into it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And apply your own critical thinking again and
Yeah.
individual like responsibility. Yeah. And I think because of that, what I love doing is just having like down to earth, like personable discussions with people who are on like the opposite side,
Mm-hmm.
because we really can agree with so much as long as we're not like viewing each other as the worst people ever and like enemies. So I think the way to go about fighting is definitely just taking the time to have conversations with
Well, and then
anyone
having
in the
enough
world.
respect for one another
Oh
to be
yeah.
able to listen to each other and to be able to listen to why they feel that way, and why that they think that their way that they do. I mean, I think that's what we're missing too. Not us, but like just in general, we're just
Yeah.
missing that with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
And
I'll say one thing too. The left, I mean, the right is has a problem with the same thing. We're not really seeing a lot of the times what is happening with the left. You know, I talked about my interaction with people on Twitter the other day in our group chat. You know, about the Socialist Rifle Association. You know, the SRA.
Yeah.
That was something I did not know existed. And there's a quote by Karl Marx that I'd like to read out real quick, because I think it's very interesting. Um, and tell me if this sounds familiar, guys. So, under no pretext should arms and ammunition be surrendered. Any attempt to disarm the workers must be frustrated by force if necessary. It sounds a lot like the First Amendment, you know. The right to
Yeah.
keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon. It sounds a lot like that, you know.
Mhm.
And then I tell people I looked it up and it's from Karl Marx, and I get this comment saying I should look up the Socialist Rifle Association. Okay, so let's look it up real quick. Socialist Rifle Association. They have an actual website too.
Yep.
So, Best of Comrades SNE range update. So they have a donate button. They have a become a member. This is something you can actually become a member of, and okay, well it has some. It's talking about Biden's gun control. President Biden's recent speech on gun control was a flaccid attempt to appear firm on gun violence. Biden stated that he was taking 4 concrete steps without Congress to meet this goal. So they have an actual problem with gun control. These are socialist, you know? And it says the Socialist Rifle Association's mission is to uphold the right of the working class to keep and bear arms and maintain the skills necessary for self and community defense. A well-established militia, you know, self-defense of the community. We don't disagree as much as we think we do,
Yeah.
you know, and we all agree. People who cannot work, you know, hey, people who cannot. Well, I won't say we all agree, but I'll ask you: people who can't work, like literally cannot, should they get aid from the government?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, like that's something we can agree on. If people can't work, if they can't get the money to help themselves, then they should get aid from the government because we don't practice euthanization of people who can't work.
Yeah.
That's illegal and it's wrong. And everybody would agree to that. You know, that's one thing us and the socialists agree on, you know. People have the right to the freedom of speech. Now, socialists would say, hey, socialism is democracy. It's the right of the people, you know. And, you know, they have their own freedom of speech. What the left is doing is they're following a very authoritarian approach to socialism, which is the issue. So yeah, I don't know if we have any more information on COVID. Did anybody have anything else to add before we move on to the next segment?
I
been-
don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
It's been kind of a long segment.
that's true.
It's been an hour and 20 minutes long. So Mason is not here to do the What's Up with Biden. So I won't frame it as What's Up with Biden. We're not doing What's Up with Biden, I swear. Mason, please don't kill us. But we do need to talk about it before it gets too late, because we wanted to talk about it last weekend. So the physician, the White House physician under Trump and I think Obama, recently came out and said that we really need to start thinking about the 25th Amendment. And this is after, you know, what happened at the G7 summit and G7 Accords, I think.
I'm not sure.
Okay. You know, he basically just made a fool of himself. He made a fool of America. Everybody's laughing at us now. That's how it
Mhm.
is. That's basically how it's going to be.
Exactly.
Um, you know, and then you know we've got the whole my butt's been wiped situation.
My
Oh,
butt's
Um,
been wiped.
my butt's been wiped. And then we've got the conversation he had with Don Lemon, I think, on CNN. You know, where he like Don Lemon asks him a question, and he just goes on a tangent after tangent after tangent, not making any sense at all. You know, and I really do feel bad for Biden because you know half the time when he's getting his recently just this morning I think he said 350 million people in America have been vaccinated. The population of America is 330
330.
331 328 million, somewhere in between there. um so the fact that he's getting these numbers wrong when he had to look down at notes to get that number, you
Mhm.
know, so either they gave him the wrong notes purposefully trying to make him look bad, which would be a terrible thing to do to a US president,
Mhm.
especially if he has the issues that people think he seems to have, you know,
Yeah.
or he just can't read or can't get the numbers right, can't get the words out of his mouth correctly. So
Mhm.
I don't want to say for sure, but I definitely think that a White House physician needs to be taken seriously when we need to be looking into the 25th Amendment,
Mhm.
because it's gotten to the point where most of the time we don't know if Biden's saying something off the top of his head or if he's reading it off notes. It's
Yeah.
it's an issue, and it's an issue that can either be resolved by making sure he's the person who's in charge.
Mhm.
You know, he's not getting all these notes from his aides, aka Kamala, or you know, making sure that you know put him through an IQ, or not an IQ test, but a psychological exam. You know, make
Yeah.
sure he's all good. You know, because we in the end we want him to be all good. You know,
Yeah.
nobody wishes ill will, or nobody at least in mainstream conservatism wishes Biden ill will. We want the best for everybody, and
Yeah, and it's
seeing what's been
wrong.
happening is yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm agreeing with you, but
Yeah.
it's just wrong to put someone in a position that they can't handle,
Yeah.
and to allow them to like be in that position when it's so much
Mhm.
responsibility, and when he is like it's really sad because he is old.
Mhm.
He's pretty old. Is he 78 something, 76?
Hey
I don't know.
Siri, how old is Joe Biden?
But it's like I don't know. It's
He's
almost
se-
like it's supportive.
he's 78. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
So
78. Like that's very old and like respect to him for making it that
for
far.
for kicking it this long, man.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah, but it's almost you could raise the question of it being unethical to like put him in this position in
Yeah.
the spotlight as the literal president of the United States when he can't quite think clearly. Like he should be enjoying his time with the people he cares about most. Like who knows how much longer he has just because he is very old. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like okay. Being the leader of the of the freest country in the world, the most
Yes.
amazing country in the world, with everything that
Mhm.
we have going on, is a very stressful job. You know,
Yeah.
and if he's okay, if he can handle that, and these are decisions that he's doing, and if it is just the stutter that's kind of messing him up, you know,
Yeah.
that's okay. You know, I can be cool with that. Um, but if he
But I
is
don't think a stutter makes you say some of the things
if
that he says.
yeah, well, I
Yeah,
mean,
no, I
hey,
don't think it is the stutter, but like being fair, if it is,
if it is, that's okay. And hey, everybody slips up every once in a while, and he is old, so I'll give him
yeah,
that. But his if he is mentally incapable of serving as president of the United States, which is a very demanding job, so I'd say you have to be pretty mentally stable in order to handle it.
yes,
Um, Something should be done about it, you know.
yeah, or at
Um,
least looked into, like investigation on it. Yeah,
yeah, and people have been saying like, oh, when impeach Biden was going on, everybody was saying, you guys do know Kamala would be president, and then impeach Biden Harris was going on. They're like, oh, you really want the Secretary of State? So, I mean, if that's the case, I feel like everybody on his roster is responsible for what's been going on to him, because if they know and they're not saying anything about it,
hmm
that they are not only crooked, they're also terrible human beings to be doing that to someone. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's all I really had to say on his mental health. So,
Yeah. Also, why does like I just hear like I just even refuse to listen to what most of the things Jen Psaki has to say. Like
no, I don't like her.
she makes the White House
Yeah.
press secretary like times like she makes all those white press hours like it's so stale. And plus, it's just a load of never-ending nonsense. Compare that
Mhm.
with Kayleigh McEnany's press secretary times. At least Kayleigh McEnany just she was a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you.
Yes.
Yeah, and we can't ever get like a clear answer out of Saki, can we? I mean, I feel like I've seen Trump coordinate or not Trump, Fox News coordinators on there like every single time I watch it, and they ask a question, she just tiptoes around the answer, not really giving a real one. But
Go back.
yeah,
Circle back, circle,
circle
back,
back, circle back, circle back.
back.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Do we
Is-
have anything else? Or?
we have the eviction moratorium, which has been extended, and then we have, don't know what that is. All right. So the eviction moratorium is something the CDC put in place towards not the beginning, but about halfway through COVID, saying that landlords could not evict renters if they were not able to pay.
Oh, okay. Yes, I have.
Which okay. So my thoughts on that. First of all, that's theft. They're getting a service without paying. Okay. I agree that rent could have been decreased for the months where people were not able to work. Okay. And then slowly increased. Now, that's a big if that actually matters because people were getting $2,000 checks from the government and then they were also getting unemployment every week. So, there's that.
Yes.
I'm going to disclose some information here. I hope it's not too sensitive. My dad was getting about $800 every single week in unemployment. And that was partial unemployment.
Wow.
Okay? The fact that people couldn't pay rent, $800 a week, when I think the median average for rent is like $800 a month,
Yeah.
is a real big issue. So the eviction moratorium, kind of bogus. So that ran out. They asked the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says no, we're not going to extend it. It's illegal. Because it's theft. It's taking a service from somebody, a landlord, without giving them their fair share. You know, and a lot of the times the landlords are paying the electric bill, they're paying the water bill because it's included. So they're paying for electricity and water that they're not getting any money back for. So the CDC decided they were a branch of the government and said that the eviction moratorium is extended. So now people cannot get kicked out of their house for not paying rent, regardless of if they're working or not, regardless of if they're getting money from the government or not. Which is super irritating because if you, I don't know if you guys know anybody who owns rental properties, it's very difficult to get them to pay when they're not being forced to, you know.
That makes sense.
So yeah, there's all that, and that's when the impeach Biden started, when he extended the eviction moratorium, with the expressed belief that it was fully illegal. He admitted it was illegal, and he still allowed the CDC to do that. So, other than that, we also have the crisis with the debt ceiling. So, I don't know if they've addressed it yet. I think they have, but the U.S. hit its debt ceiling, which is absolutely insane because it was extremely high. So, the U.S. can't get any more money from the American people without paying it back. That's who the government is indebted to. They're indebted to the people who live in the country. So they can't pay foreign countries. They can't pay American companies. They can't pay foreign companies. They can't pay the American people. So what's going to have to happen unless they raise that debt ceiling is they're going to have to default on their loans. That's like $20 trillion, I want to say. I don't want to be wrong, but it's a lot of money that is just going to disappear. That has no backing. Yeah, can you look up the debt for me,
Yeah.
Josie? Thank you so
Yeah.
much. But anyways, so if America were to default on its loans, we couldn't rely on the government for anything, because the government already has no money to give us. You know, them defaulting on their loans, it would completely ruin trust in the American government. No companies would ever give us anything unless we were giving them monetary value right then and there. No companies would want anything from the American government. No companies would ever give anything to the American government, because most of the time when companies supply the American government with something, the American government hands them an IOU and says, we'll pay you back later.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time they don't.
That number, it says by the end of 2020, the federal government had $26.95 trillion in federal debt. So yeah, it's for sure higher now. So
it's for sure higher now, especially with all the stimulus checks, the unemployment, and then it's...
Well, and then in turn,
Everything.
what happens to our dollar,
Oh, yeah.
So what's going to happen to our dollar?
It'll be virtually useless. I don't know if you guys have seen the
Exactly.
picture. I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures of Venezuela, but
Yes.
there are pictures of dollars in the gutter in
Mhm.
Venezuela because they are
And
worth
then-
nothing at all.
Yeah, and then all the like accounts of people using like wheelbarrows to like bring the money just because they had
Oh,
to
yeah.
have that much for it to be worth anything.
You want to buy a loaf of bread? Bring
exchange it
bring a wheelbarrow to Kroger,
Yeah,
because that's the only thing that they'll accept for that.
yeah.
And it's
Guess we won't
insane.
need shopping cart.
Yeah, it's insane to think that. And I'm fairly certain they're going to raise the debt ceiling because they don't want to. They don't want to cause all that. But a little part of me wants them to refuse to raise the debt ceiling, default on their loans, okay? And then there to be an issue. And I know that's terrible to say because it would
And-
affect all of us negatively. But
Yeah.
it would also show them that a socialistic government will not
Yep.
work here. The government cannot pay for anything. They're very inefficient. They're terrible what they do, and we shouldn't trust the government with anything involving healthcare, education, the public sector, anything at all except protecting and serving.
Mhm.
Police officers, the military.
Yeah.
That's all I
Defending the
want.
rights that they don't give us. We have the rights.
The
They're
government.
just
So-
there to defend them.
That's where like I'm going to like what I'm saying is, so like if we end up having to where our dollar is worth nothing, then eventually we're going to have to depend on the government.
And yeah, that's
know?
exactly what it is. And I don't know if that's the goal. I hope it's not.
Yeah.
But that's the way it would go. It would show it would make it to where that was the case, but it would also show that socialism does not work because socialism is what brought along socialism. The government investing in these sectors is what caused it. And I say the same thing on Twitter all the time. The government's job is to protect and serve, not regulate and provide.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much how I feel about it. I agree with the military, and I agree with police officers.
Yep.
I don't like
Yeah.
politicians. I don't like
No.
single payer healthcare. I don't like the government giving people money for college. I don't like any of that because it degrades the value of everything.
Yeah.
Housing, 10 times higher than it was before because the government now pays people to live in their own houses.
Mhm.
Education, like people going like $100,000 in student loan debt for something like underwater basket weaving, I don't know, is absolutely insane.
Mhm.
Because I feel like I'm in one of the one college in the United States that's not been affected like this. My tuition per semester is like $1,500. That's
Mine
not
is
expensive.
500.
Yours is $500.
Well, only if you live in North Carolina. So
Only if you live in North
Oh
Carolina.
yeah, come on.
I live in not North Carolina. I live in Georgia. That's my in-state tuition. So,
yes. Yeah.
and that's at one of the cheapest
500.
colleges in the state.
Yeah.
But it's
on, bro.
extremely
Well,
manageable.
that recently changed for us. Like, because whenever I was going to school, I was paying like around, I guess, like 5,000 per semester.
Oh yeah. See, I have friends. I have friends in North Carolina, and I know they're going to college, and it's super cheap for
Oh,
them.
They
man.
probably go to Western.
Jersey's,
That's like the only
New
They probably go to
Jersey's
where?
anyways.
Western Carolina University. That's where I go. It's like I feel like it's the only cheap place in North Carolina
Oh
possible.
yeah, that's where I ended up transferring, so I
Mhm.
wouldn't have to pay so much. But it was after when they changed that, like what, 3 years ago?
I think.
It was very soon that they, or like it was very recent that they just changed that to where we only paid $500 per semester.
Yes.
Oh, like
Yeah.
flat, $500 flat, no more, no
Yeah,
less.
Come
yeah.
on.
That is
It is
insane.
Tuition
not the
only.
government's role to take care of its citizens.
Hmm. And
It's not like, come on. Government should have some moral control. Like, they should have some control, like, to the point where we establish like a stable society. But other than that, it's like government's role should always be limited. I don't know why
Mhm.
people say like we're just the same as liberals. Like, no, we're not. Liberals, they put way too much trust in government.
yeah,
We conservative, we say we want to trust ourselves. We want to take care of ourselves. We want personal responsibility. And that's why we say government should only ensure that citizens' rights and freedoms are upheld. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
far,
and
we're not seeing that with the we're not seeing that a lot
Mhm.
with like the current administration and the Republicans in our Congress. They need
we
to
haven't
grow.
we haven't seen that with almost any administration
Mhm.
for a very
And
Well,
long
that's
but
time.
this administration really doesn't care about the
Yeah.
Constitution. They do not care about the Constitution. They do not care about the people. They're all about just like what's working for their agenda.
Mhm. And I mean, they've already proved that with the eviction moratorium. They don't care about the Constitution. The Supreme Court says the Constitution says that it is illegal to do that, and then they did it anyways. They do not care about the Constitution. And
Well,
I'll bring up
sorry.
what you said, Stephen, real quick. I liked what you said, but I'll correct you again. You said liberals. It's leftist.
leftist.
Yeah. So that I feel
Sorry,
like
it's just hard to
I know,
distinguish.
I know,
two
I know.
things.
It's incredibly difficult, and people on both sides do it. But I've been showed the distinction very well. So I feel like the government's job, okay, protect and serve, not provide and regulate. Only regulate, okay, and this is where I said before, they need to find the point where their rights end and my rights begin, and regulate to that point and that point only. Okay? I don't want my rights impeding on anybody else's rights, and I don't want their rights impeding on mine. That's as far as they need to go, no more, no less.
All right. Wow.
And what were you saying, Devin? I'm sorry for cutting you off. I just really need to get that point out.
No, you're fine. I see. My problem is I just forget what I was saying, so like
Ah.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to say it or I forget it. You know?
I am so sorry.
No, it's fine. No, I think like I was talking about like with the mandating the vaccines too.
Yeah.
Like that's against our rights. That's against the Constitution, and same with them asking to be able to see our like vaccine supposed vaccine passport. I feel like that is a violation of HIPAA. I feel like that's a violation of our rights too. So it's like they don't care. They're making this to where like, oh yeah, we can do that, but even though this is infringing on your rights, we don't care. We're going to do what we want.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's the. Okay, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage other retained by the people. Okay, that's called the right to privacy amendment. It's the Ninth Amendment. So asking for vaccine passports, it doesn't say that the government can ask to see them. It doesn't say that they can't see them. The Ninth Amendment says that even though it is not in the Constitution, it is enumerated from the Constitution. That shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
like
saying
it's assumed as a right.
it's assumed as a right. Anything that gives the government power over the people is assumed to be unconstitutional under the Ninth Amendment.
Hmm.
I assume that to be unconstitutional. You asking to see if I'm vaccinated or not? Papers, please. We're not Russia here. We're not Germany. We're not asking to see papers to let people into places. What was that game? Papers, please. Where was that based at? I think it's communist Russia. I think.
I think so.
I think so. I think.
Yeah.
Don't quote me, but
Yeah.
It sounds right. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you guys know what game I'm talking about? Yeah. Maybe, I don't know.
I can't remember, but I know it's like it's so familiar.
PewDiePie
but I
played it.
don't.
PewDiePie and Markiplier played it. All right, whatever.
It's so familiar. I know,
You're fine.
but I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Wow.
that's all I had for us this week.
Yes. And I think that's a good place to end. Like we don't just for the sake of time, I know it's getting pretty late.
Oh yeah.
To our audience, we want to just say thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you want, please follow Prager Force on Instagram, Twitter, and please go like their Facebook page. And please,
Yeah.
and for new content every week, please subscribe to our channel at the Conservative Input, where we put a whole bunch of truth-based content that the media just does not want to show or that they want to hide. And also check out Prager Force
Yeah.
on social media. This is a great place where young conservatives from all different walks of life can gather and just have different conversations. Just share about the issues. Go like the Facebook page. Go join Prager Force, like the Facebook page, and follow them on Instagram and Twitter.
Do all that
Yeah,
good
Twitter.
stuff.
All the good
Do all
stuff.
the good stuff, please.
Yeah.
And the link will be up on the channels. And so, God bless you all, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
Yeah, like you said, follow Prager Force, follow Prager U. They're on all types of social media, and make sure you follow us on Instagram. And we've got our podcast up on a couple platforms, not Apple Music or not Apple Podcast yet, sadly. Still waiting on that one. Maybe I've gotten the email for it. I don't know, but yeah, the tags for Prager U and Prager Force will be up at the top, and our tags will be at the bottom. Stevens is still a little messed up from last time, but I actually think the longer episode is justified considering we weren't able to make the episode last week. Too many delays, too many problems with the video, too many problems with the recording. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'd really appreciate a subscribe.
Yeah.
You know, and
Oh, I
don't
just
be
realized my camera's off.
your camera's been off the entire time.
It
Bud.
was?
Nobody told me. There we go.
Oh, poor Zane.
No, you did
There's
very
Zane.
well.
There we go.
Right in the last 5 minutes. But yeah,
Oh no.
don't be afraid to follow. Don't be afraid to subscribe, and don't be afraid to like and comment, man. We love comments. But
Everybody comment.
yeah,
Goodbye, guys.
adios.